Cowboys are on the lookout for their next bust. Turns out, Brian, the Cowboys actually do want players that could bust on you. They want all of them. And if you busted at any point in the last 9 or 10 years, you were on the Cowboys' radar. It's funny. Okay, Ryan Clark had a quote go viral on NFL Live audio here. Is this the best explanation for why they're doing it the way they do it?
So this is a great signing by Seattle, another loss by the Cowboys.
They don't care. I'm convinced the Cowboys just don't
in that
care.
mode?
Yeah, Cowboys just like, hey, man, it is what it is, dog. We're going to see what happens. We ain't trying to get no better in the all season.
Not gonna help.
You know what it is? See, they feel like a guy like Peyton Turner, who they signed as a free agent, like, we'll just slap him in there. He'll be good enough. I know that, but I mean, they just look at that, like, they're looking at him and Solomon Thomas. Look at the way Dallas gets run through. And they just sign guys like they're just like, hey, you know what? They'll just out-effort them and we'll out-hustle them.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, the amount of times that we've sat here and tried to even list off all of the needs that Dallas still has, and they're letting DeMarcus Lawrence
That's a big loss.
go.
And think about it. In 1 year, they lose him and Zach Martin when it comes to, like,
it's character and grit and leadership. Yep. When you watch DeMarcus Lawrence play, he was the one guy on the front
left it out
defensively that played football like it was supposed to be played. Yeah. He played on the other side of the line of scrimmage. He was about hat in hands. He was about leverage. He played this game and gave them a sense of physicality that really nobody else did, even with Micah being their best player.
Yeah, Ryan Clark, the headline quote off of that, they don't care. I don't know. I think they do care. They just don't want it bad enough to try to go make it happen. They're going to let it happen based on how they team build. And we'll see how it goes here over the next couple of years. Brian mentioned it yesterday, and this is the first time where maybe since the early 2000s, they could be looking at multiple 5 or 6 win seasons in a row. Maybe that would be a pivot in their team building approach. But until then, I think Ryan Clark hit the nail right on the head. And as disappointing as last year was, it hasn't shaken them into caring enough to make sure they're doing anything other than replacing it with the worst possible players that you could. You know, they want to make sure they have enough players to go out there. And I think the thing that rings in my head in a time like this is after a game when Jerry talks about being embarrassed by the performance of the football team, I think they want to make sure they don't do that. And that might be another weakness, because if you're not willing to play that bad of football, then you can never really properly rebuild with the kind of a tank move for a sustained period of time. But that is where they are. And Ryan Clark said they don't care. Brian, is that what you pick up they're putting down?
Oh, no. Ryan is I have a lot of respect for Ryan and what he thinks about the football team. It's really, really difficult to me because I'm trying to kind of figure out, the free agency aspect of it. I'm trying not to lose as many guys as they're losing. I think, like I said, I think there are a couple of guys that they signed that are worthwhile for, potentially going forward. I just think you put so much pressure on your scouts in the draft. And I just wish there was a way that they didn't do that. 2 years ago, we were in this situation, we say, hey, don't worry, we'll draft us out of this. We'll figure out a way to draft us out of this. That's the thing that's scaring me right now is I don't know if they're going to be able to draft their way out of this. That's the thing that especially
they 100% cannot.
And especially and listen, they don't give a damn what I think. But when I start to hear about players that are we talked about the Georgia the Will Johnson not right, and I could be dead wrong about that. But there's a lot of other people that's saying the same damn thing. And, if all of a sudden, if these guys show up and you have another bad draft, that's a big problem. They are losing the arms race right now, I think, to the Eagles.
Well, if all due respect to them, if they have another bad draft this year, then I don't know that we can keep going back to the well and saying they're a good drafting team. You can't miss 3 straight years on a first-round pick. And I'm still holding out hope on Guyton. Mozzie's clearly not a first-round talent. Yeah. I mean, he's not developing into that. He can end up being like a serviceable, good starter, not first-round caliber, right, which is what they're trading for right now. They're trading for guys that they hope and potential. They're trying to envision a player that just hasn't existed in the NFL.
Well,
Kyrie Elam hasn't been a good corner.
Yeah.
Peyton Turner hasn't been a good end. Right? Kenneth Murray Jr. has not fulfilled a first-round linebacker role in the NFL. So there's talent there. But I think the bigger thing for me is, Brian, it's not that they don't care. I don't think they're hungry. Jason Kelce famously had the hungry dog runs faster. Where's the hunger in that front office? They don't have to be hungry. They're fat and happy on 3 championships, on making a bunch of money every single year, knowing their job is secured.
I said it earlier, though. We've talked about it. That guy at Philadelphia, he wakes up every day. And when I say desperate, I'm not talking about desperate to lose his job. I'm talking about he's desperate to make his team better. I just, maybe it's hunger, whatever, but I just don't think they're desperate enough to do. I don't think they have the stomach to do what they need to do to turn this thing around. I don't think they, we talk about all ins and things like that. No, it's just about comfort. It's about, hey, we'll try and fill this hole, do this, that, and the other. But I just don't see the desperate with this football team.
It's hard to enjoy your life if you also want to be driven to win Super Bowls. Like when we had Chris Young on a couple of weeks ago at spring training, we talked about how competitive he was.
Yeah.
The first thing out of his mouth was, it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones talked about how earlier in his career, this drive to succeed and to stay at that level can create a lot of stressful days, and he just doesn't want to have an experience like that. And I don't blame him, because you're an owner. And that's why most owners hire a GM. You're paying somebody like Landman to be out there, boots on the ground, and go through that hell that it takes in order to be a successful operation.
See, that's the thing about with Jerry, man. There was a time where he was desperate.
Yeah.
When he was paying, when the bills were due, and it was,
you're losing $1 million a month. He tells the story.
That's when he was a hungry dog, and now he's a fat cat.
That's when right there it was like, man, I got to figure out a way to get this thing turned around.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that anymore with that group. I just don't. And
they would really like to win.
When they talk, like when Steven's talking, when Jerry's talking.
They don't look at personnel 24/7. They don't. They don't do everything in their power to make their team better.
Well,
that
and it's
way.
clear because what they're doing, it seems, is just going back on their draft notes on these guys.
Yeah.
Like, these are guys that we thought were good players. All of them were top 75 picks that they're bringing in here, and heck, some of them might work. I don't hate some of the moves that they've made. It just doesn't seem like it's enough. I mean, the one, and we're getting some texts in, like, what's the one move that the Dre Greenlaw signing is the one that I'm like, I would have loved them to do. That was an affordable contract. You look at what Rico Dowdle got. Like, is Javonte Williams better than Rico? I personally think this was Rico and his agent thought the market was going to be better for him out there. And the Cowboys made an offer, and they thought they can go get more. They couldn't. So they ended up settling for the same deal, basically, that Javonte Williams got.
So they just said, we can't come back hat in hand.
Well, the Cowboys pivoted already. The Cowboys went ahead and signed Javonte Williams.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, well, then they've got a running back. So he goes home basically to Carolina. Yeah. That's where he played his college football. He's from that area. So good move for Rico. But ultimately, like, these aren't moves that are they upgrades for you that time will tell, but they're filling out the bottom of your roster. Like, you needed bodies, you needed depth.
Yeah.
They're hitting that, but these are not moves that are making you more of a serious contender by any means.
Players really 40 through 53.
I know I asked you guys about this a couple of days ago, but the stuff and how the Rico played out, now that we know about it, it really makes me wonder what kind of a role they have in mind for Javonte Williams. And maybe it's going to be bigger than third down back or obvious passing situation back, and that would be terrifying because he's not going to be able to produce on the ground nearly what Rico did.
No, that's the problem. If you think that his role really will be as a pass catcher and a pass blocker, because you can't lean on him in the running game.
No, they got to draft their starting running back.
Yeah. But it's really hard when the most powerful person in an operation isn't the hardest working, isn't one of the smartest guys, because there's people that don't want to disagree with the ultimate decision we're going to making and don't want to speak up because of what they're doing to keep a job. And the Cowboys desperately need somebody to speak up and to be accountable and to be responsible for doing a better job on all of this. And hopefully they'll get the catalyst here in the coming, I think, years, maybe a couple years away. Okay, Josh Allen talking about giving up the extra $5 million continues to resonate across Cowboys Twitter and in the headlines as well. Could have gotten about $5 million more if he'd really fought it out, and basically saying it just didn't matter that much to him. And I don't think this is on Dak being greedy at all. I love it when a player knows his value and negotiates hard against the Jones family. I think it's funny, but it's really about the Cowboys being so lazy in the negotiation, they can't even put in the hard work to get the asset they claim to value the most, which is cap space. We have multiple players now saying, never heard from him. Mike McCarthy barely had a negotiation. Like, they're just checked out. Why aren't the Cowboys farther along in the Micah Parsons deal? He wants to talk. He's mentioned it several times in the media. Are the Cowboys talking to him? No. Why? They want the billionaire lifestyle of being accountable to nothing and just getting to do whatever they want any day of the week. And now they're applying that to the football team while being the most powerful people inside the organization. We're watching something profound happen with this organization, with this football team, as they no longer have the foundational great players in there that can, generate playoff seasons. And that's a new reality. It's gonna smack them in the face, Chief.
I'm just looking at a couple of the deals that they easily could have done. You mentioned the Dre Greenlaw one, and I think Sanborn's probably the only guy they brought in who's like actually starting caliber. Everybody else that they brought in is more of a rotational or backup type player. Sanborn being the only one that is probably going to start for you, even though he wasn't even always a starter in Chicago. But with where they're at linebacker right now, he definitely is. Bobby Brown, 24 years old, from the Rams, 330 pounds, one of the better run-stuffing defensive tackles in the league. 3 years, $21 million.
Local guy, played at Allen.
Easily could have brought him in, 24 years old. He's an immediate upgrade over Mozzie Smith. That was 3 years, $21 million. Nick Westbrook-Akine, I think is how you say his name, Akina.
Yeah.
Wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans, 27 years old, 6'2", 211 pounds. He would have been a big body receiver who had 9 touchdowns for the Titans last year. He's a great red zone threat. He got 2 years for $6.5 million from the Dolphins.
Yeah, he was a deep threat.
That's a guy who it would be a 6'2" body opposite CeeDee Lamb for $6 million over 2 years. He had 9 touchdowns with the Titans last year. You have red zone issues all over the place in your offense. 2 years, $6.5 million.
Wow.
I don't even know that they know that he exists in the world, let alone in the league.
See, I was going to say, with the money that you gave to like Rob Jones and Kenneth Murray, you could have bought like a $12 million a year player and got somebody of bigger impact, but you wouldn't even have to do that. Got a guy here for 3.
Mike Hilton is still available. He's not going to command much.
He's also an injured, banged up
guy. That's the one thing. And I know you've been bringing it up a lot, but the one thing, and I asked somebody about him like this. I've asked people, and they say he's always hurt. That's what you're always kind of dealing with, injuries. So I was just kind of curious by that whole thing.
And that's totally fair.
Yeah.
But I mean, but
that's the reason they give. I mean, the guy makes plays. But they always.
Peyton Turner's always hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, but be consistent with it.
I mean, those are just easy, just low-hanging fruit ones. There's probably 25 deals in free agency that could have been financially very responsible and helped you immediately and actually gotten you starters.